The Mexican Air Force is the primary aerial warfare service branch of the Mexican Armed Forces. It is a component of the Mexican Army and depends on the National Defense Secretariat. Since November 2013, its commander is General Carlos Antonio Rodríguez Munguía. History: Mexican Revolution. The official predecessor of the Air Force was the Army's Auxiliary Aerial Militia Squadron, created during the Mexican Revolution in April 1913 by the Secretary of War and Navy General Manuel Mondragón Cubden, who authorized pilots Miguel Lebrija and Juan Guillermo Villazana to bomb targets on Campo de Balbuna, in Mexico City. On February 5, 1915, the leader of the Constitutionalist Army, Venustiano Carranza, founded the Arma de Aviación Cubden Militar, which would become the current Air Force. Its first commander was Lieutenant Alberto Salinas Carranza. Other rebellions: in 1925, due to the shortage of airplanes caused by World War I, Mexico set up the National Aviation Workshops to design and build its own airplanes and aero engines. When U.S. Colonel Ralph O'Neill was hired to revamp the Mexican Air Force in 1920, he reported to General Plutarco Elias Calles that most of the aircraft available had to be replaced since they were obsolete and worn away. Therefore, Mexico acquired some British Avro 504K and Avro 504J airplanes, which later would be made in Mexico with the name of Avro Hawk. In addition, in May 1920, Mexico acquired 13 twin-engine bombers Farman F-50. Between the years 1923 and 1929, Mexico found itself immersed in a wave of violent territorial, religious and military armed rebellions, which required the Air Force to quickly deploy its forces and provide air support wherever the Federal Army requested them. Some of these conflicts, that were decided mostly by the assertive use of the Air Force, are mentioned below. On December 7, 1923, former President Adolfo de la Huerta launched a military coup against the government of President Álvaro Obregón Cubden. The situation was extremely critical, because along with de la Huerta, about 60% of the army revolted, including various high-ranking generals across the country. The power tilted back in favor of the federal forces when the United States agreed to furnish the Mexican government with a fleet of new de Havilland DH-4B aircraft equipped with a Liberty motor, armed with Lewis and Vickers machine guns and able to carry bombs. The military coup was then suffocated by February 1924. A territorial war was that of the Sonora Yaqui Indians who demanded by force that previous territorial treaties were implemented. The conflict lasted from 1926 to 1927, and it came to an end when a new treaty was implemented. When President Plutarco Elias Calles pushed for the creation of the Mexican Apostolic Catholic Church, independent of Rome, it unleashed a widespread religious war known as the Cristero War. This long civil war lasted from 1926 to 1929. In May 1927, while General Obregón Cubden seemed keen to impose the presidency to General Calles, General Arnulfo Agar Cubdmez launched a military coup against both Obregón Cubden and Calles. His command posts were located in the cities of Puebla and Veracruz, where he led approximately 200 federal deserters, ammunition and weapons. The Air Force played a key role in their defeat. Then, on March 3, 1929, a serious military coup took place, led by General José Copyright Gonzalo Escobar and headed by various other generals. In these days, the Air Force's remaining airplanes consisted of worn and shot Bristol F-2 fighter, Bristol Boarhound, de Havilland DH-4B and Douglas O-2C, a force that was not suitable to defeat Escobar's power. In this context, the Mexican government convinced the U.S. government to promote the peace south of its border and quickly make available 12 new OU-2M Corsair with a 400 HP Wasp engine, 9 Douglas O-2M, 4 Stearman C-3B and 6 Waco taper wings. Only 2 weeks after making the request, the U.S. government agreed, and several Mexican pilots traveled to Brownsville, Texas, and New York to pick up the new aircraft. The key victory was decided in late March 1929 at the Battle of Jima Copyright Nez, Chihuahua, where after several days of air raids, Escobar was defeated by General Calles, taking about 6,000 prisoners. This rebellion was quite serious, since a third of the officials and nearly 30,000 soldiers rebelled. In 2 months, more than 2,000 men had been killed. In May 1938, the governor of San Luis Potosi, General Saturnino Cedillo, declared himself in rebellion, and President Lázaro Cárdenas traveled there to personally mount the campaign against the revolt. The Air Force organized a mixed fleet of 17 aircraft that included some new V-99M Corsair, engaging the enemy assertively when spotted. Cedillo quickly realized he had no chance in open fields against the Air Force and ran to the Huasteca Hills, where his men dispersed, abandoning him. With the imminent collapse of the Spanish Republic in 1939, the Mexican government took delivery of military aircraft destined for the Republic, strengthening its arsenal. World War II. The Escuadra Cubed N-201, a P-47D fighter squadron of the Fuerza or Copyright Re-Expedition Aérea Mexicana, served in the Pacific War against the Empire of Japan during World War II. It consisted of 25 aircraft and had 300 airmen and supporting staff. The 201 squadron completed 96 combat missions over the Philippines and Formosa, now called Taiwan. It is the only unit of the Mexican Armed Forces ever to see overseas combat. Cold War era, the first jet aircraft operated by the Mexican Air Force was the subsonic de Havilland Vampire Mki. Mexico received 17 Vampires during late 1960 and early 1961. This jet was nicknamed the Flying Avocado by Mexican flight crews due to the ovoid shape of its fuselage and the dark green night camouflage adopted by its first units. The Vampires were not popular with Mexican fighter pilots because of its lack of ejection seats. The FAM finally retired them in 1970. The Mexican Vampires were initially complemented by 15 Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star subsonic fighter aircraft received also in late 1961. Because of its more modern design, an ejection seat system and several other attributes, the T-33 was well liked by most FAM pilots and became a huge success as a patrol and interceptor aircraft. During the 70s and early 80s, an additional 20 or more T-33s were procured by the FAM to replace aircraft lost in accidents and to increase the size of the fleet after the retirement of the Vampires. In 1982, the FAM received 12 Northrop F-5EF Tiger II jets. The F-5 gave Mexico its first supersonic platform and saw the formation of Air Squadron 401. During the 80s, the F-5 became the main Mexican fighter jet while the remaining operational T-33s were still used for subsonic support and light attack roles. In 1983, an F-5 was lost in an accident that occurred during a target practice exercise in the state of Chihuahua. Chiapas conflict. On January 1, 1994, the day the North American Free Trade Agreement came into effect, hundreds of guerrillas from the previously unknown Zapatista Army of National Liberation occupied several towns and cities in the southern state of Chiapas. The FAM was mobilized to support Army units, sending almost every available helicopter to the territory of operations. Units involved included the recently formed 214th and 215th Special Operations Squadrons, equipped with a mix of Bell 212 Assault and MD-530F Scout helicopters. Up to 40 helicopters were deployed to support an initial deployment of 10,000 ground troops. Bell 212s were armed in 2 configurations, for fire support with twin-mag 7.62mm gun pods and cabin-mounted GPMGs. Or as gunship, with LAU 32 70mm rocket launchers, a twin-mag gun pod and cabin-mounted mag GPMGs. Pumas, Bell 205s, 206s and 212s from the 209th were also deployed. However, FAM's helicopter assets were scarce and the Mexican Army had to rely on almost every other government agency's helicopters for general support tasks. Almost any flyable aircraft from the National Attorney's Office was also deployed, including Bell 206s and 212s. As well as the Navy's recently acquired Mi-8 MTV-1s. Eventually the Army deployed some 70,000 ground troops and air support proved to be insufficient. Hence the decision was taken to considerably expand the FAM's helicopter fleet. By December 1994, FAM had bought additional 12 armed MD 530 mg Defender and 4 UH-60L Black Hawk helicopters, which it grouped into the 216th Special Operations Squadron. This unit was the spearhead of Operation Arco Iris to retake several towns that had fallen under rebel control in January 1994. The new militarized Defenders came armed with M2AC machine guns and LAU-68A 70mm rocket launchers. 3 additional units were ordered in 1996 and delivered as attrition replacements in March 1998. Black Hawks wore 1191 to 1194 serials and are being used for special operations. Although the FAM received 18 surplus Bell 206s from the Attorney General's office in the mid-1990s, the main need identified by the FAM High Command was for a new fleet of transport helicopters that would allow it to support the Army with an adequate airlift capability. Recent times, on September 16, 1995, after more than 30 yearly military parade flights without incidents, an F-5E collided in mid-air with 3 Lockheed T-33s during the parade for the independence of Mexico. All aircraft were lost and a total of 10 deaths occurred. Since then, for safety reasons, military parade flyovers in Mexico have been smaller in participation. In 2007, after more than 45 years in service, the last operational T-33s were retired. In 2012 the F-5 fighter jets had their 30th anniversary in Mexican Air Force service. Because of the ongoing Mexican drug war, increasing importance has been placed on acquiring airborne surveillance platforms, UAVs, light attack aircraft, helicopters and rapid troop transports. Structure: a national commander under the orders of the Secretary of National Defense is in charge of the Mexican Air Force. The second in command is the Air Force Chief of Staff, who supervises a Deputy Chief of Operations and a Deputy Chief of Management. The Air Force divides the country's territory into 4 regions: Northwestern, Northeastern, Central and Southeastern. Each region is commanded by a general. The regional headquarters are in charge of 18 air bases across the country: Northwest Air Region, Northeast Air Region, Air Bases, 1st Military Air Station Mexico City International Airport, General Coordination of the Presidential Air Transport Unit, High Command Special Air Transport Unit operating UH-60 Black Hawk, SA-330J, Jetstar, IAI-201, Beechcraft Super King Air, Boeing 737, 1st Military Air Base Santa Lucia, State of Mexico, 1st Air Group, 101 Air Squadron operating Bell 412, UH-60 Black Hawk. Eurocopter EC-725, 112 Air Squadron operating Bell 212, MD 530 mg, 401 Air Squadron operating Northrop F-5E Tiger II. 3rd Air Group, 301 Air Squadron operating IAI-101B201, C-295, 302 Air Squadron operating C-130 Hercules, C-27J Spaten, 303 Air Squadron operating Mi-8TMTV-1, 502 Air Squadron operating Boeing 727, Aerial Surveillance Squadron operating C-26 Metrolina, SA-2-37B, RP-99, VIP Transport Squadron, operating Super Puma, Boeing 757. 2nd Military Air Base Ixtep, Oaxaca, 1st Air Group, 402 Air Squadron Pilatus PC-7. 3rd Military Air Base El Cipres, Baja California, 5th Air Group, 106 Air Squadron Cessna 182. 4th Military Air Base Cozumel, Quintana Roo, 2nd Air Group, 201 Air Squadron Pilatus PC-7. 5th Military Air Base Zapopan, Jalisco, 5th Air Group, 105 Air Squadron operating Cessna 182, Cessna 206, 111 Air Squadron operating Bell 206, Bell 212. Air Force Academy, Preparatory Squadron operating Beech F-33C, Primary Squadron operating Aramaki SF-260, Advanced Squadron Pilatus PC-7. 6th Military Air Base Terran, Chiapas, 2nd Air Group, 202 Air Squadron operating Pilatus PC-7, Pilatus PC-9M. 7th Military Air Base Pi de la Cuesta, Guerrero, 5th Air Group, 102 Air Squadron operating Bell 206, Bell 212. 2nd Air Group, 204 Air Squadron operating Pilatus PC-7. 8th Military Air Base Mar Copyright Rider, Yucata N, 5th Air Group, 104 Air Squadron operating Bell 206, Bell 212, CH-53D Yeza, Cessna 210. 9th Military Air Base La Paz, Baja California Sur, 2nd Air Group, 203 Air Squadron Pilatus PC-7. 10th Military Air Base Culiacán N, Sinaloa, 5th Air Group, 109 Air Squadron Cessna 182. 11th Military Air Base Santa Gertrudis, Chihuahua, Military School of Applied Air Tactics of the Air Force operating Pilatus PC. July 13th Military Air Base Chihuahua, Chihuahua, 5th Air Group, 110 Air Squadron operating Cessna 182. 14th Military Air Base Monterrey, Nuevo Leon, 5th Air Group, 108 Air Squadron operating Cessna 182. 15th Military Air Base Oaxaca, Oaxaca, 5th Air Group, 103 Air Squadron operating Bell 212. 18th Military Air Base Hermosillo, Sonora, 5th Air Group, 107 Air Squadron operating Cessna 182, Pilatus PC-6. Ranks: Air Force ranks are the same as in Mexico's Army, with the exception of generals. Pilot selection and training: the FAM offers higher education, middle education, technical training, tactical training and specialized technical training in its various campuses. Air Force Academy. Since the National School of Aviation was opened in 1915, it took different names over the years until finally, in 1959 it joined the Military School of Meteorology, Mechanics and Aviation Specialists, forming the leading campus in military aviation education, El Colegio del Aire, which since September 9, 1959, has guided the formation of Air Force officers. The Air Force Academy is an all-academic institution of the Mexican Air Force and comprises 4 schools: Military Aviation School, Maintenance and Supply Military School, Air Force Military Specialist School, and the Military Troops Air Force Specialist School. Military Aviation School: admission to the Air Force is through the mechanism of military recruitment that takes place every year at the Ministry of Defense. The FAM currently offers tertiary-level studies highlighting that of military pilot, which spans 4 years at the facilities of the Air Force Academy located on the Military Air Base No. 5 in Zapopan, Jalisco. The subjects taught in pilot training include, tactics of the branches of aviation, general aviation tactics, meteorology, air navigation, air traffic control, radio communications and culture in general, along with approximately 250 hours of flight. During the first year, the training is theoretical. During the second year, Beechcraft Bonanza aircraft are used for flight instruction. During the third, the cadets are trained Aramaki SF-260EU for aerobatics, and later on Pilatus PC-7 for advanced flight tactics, including combat. Within each of these stages, the cadets are trained in aerial acrobatics, stage tactical instrument flight, visual flying rules, radio operations, among others, which increase in complexity as the cadets' training progresses. The first female aviator to graduate as a pilot in the history of FAM, Andrea Cruz, became a cadet at the Military Aviation School in 2007. Military Air Force Specialist School. Military School of Air Force Specialist offers a comprehensive scholarship lasting 3 years for officer training meteorologists and flight control, obtaining at the graduate level of lieutenant. His duties are to provide meteorological information and control of military or civil aircraft. School of the Air Force Special Forces, Military School of Special Troops of the Air Force is an establishment of military education that has as its mission to train sergeants in seconds aviation maintenance, supply lines, electronic aviation and military aviation. The school is located in the St. Lucia Military Base. Military School of Maintenance and Supply. In this school, officers are trained as aviation maintenance specialists, aviation electronics specialists, weapons and air supply lines. Recruitment. To enter any of the campuses of the Air Force, SEDENA convenes a competitive entrance examination which is held each year. The requirements are, Mexican citizenship and have no other nationality, be the son of Mexican-born parents, minimum age of 15 years old at December 31st of the year in course, maximum age of 20 years old at December 31st of the year in course, have completed high school or equivalent, minimum height of 1.65 am, in order to be admitted to any school of the Mexican Air Force Academy mentioned above. The applicant should also perform the following tests: physical, medical, cultural, and aviation psychology. In some cases, the psychological aeromedical second-level examination may also be required. Fleet. Mexico has the second-largest defense budget in Latin America, spending about 0.5% GDP on its military. The Air Force fleet is estimated to be at 241 fixed-wing aircraft and 117 helicopters. Aircraft inventory, recent and planned purchases. See also, Mexican Naval Aviation, references. External links, History of the Mexican Air Force. Planes and helicopters of the Mexican Air Force.